So wanted to start a child care center because
Anthony Andrews admits he isn't your typical daycare owner.
also being a firefighter, I have witnessed some centers that weren't high quality.
That led him to open the type of center he wanted for his kids, Teachable Moments here in Central Virginia.
Yes, we're in the child care business, but we're also in the trust business. And I want you to trust me. I want you to trust my staff.
Across America, daycares are finding themselves under a magnifying glass.
What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Since a post went viral from a YouTuber in Minnesota who uncovered alleged daycare fraud.
They literally spelled the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here.
Nick Shirley drew attention specifically to a number of daycares run by Somali immigrants, receiving millions in taxpayer assistance.
$1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
His citizen reporting set off a firestorm and national intrigue into what was actually going on behind oftentimes blacked out windows.
We're talking about the Quality Learning Center near downtown Minneapolis. First it was closed, then it was open, and now we've confirmed it's closed again.
The possibility of fraud, with taxpayers footing big parts of the bill, drew outrage nationwide and in Washington.
It makes me want to knee someone in the groin. It just makes me furious.
The Trump administration leapt into action, freezing some $10 billion in federal funding for child care and social services.
They have daycare centers where there are no kids. It's a scam. It's a big scam. It's like a horrible thing.
A number of the daycare centers in Shirley's post remain under investigation, and Minnesota state officials are conducting increased compliance checks on daycares that participate in government programs. The allegations come amid a backdrop of jaw-dropping amounts of fraud in Minnesota related to child care services, as federal prosecutors convicted a number of Somali immigrants for defrauding billions of tax dollars.
The magnitude of the fraud in Minnesota cannot be overstated. It's staggering amounts of money that have been lost.
The fluid situation has some daycare owners hesitant to speak out. The owner of one Christian daycare in California tells CBN News she believes the president to be ill-informed. She says strict guidelines for both schools and parents to follow make defrauding the system difficult. Andrews agrees committing fraud would be difficult.
I do think that it's pretty difficult to defraud the system and just receive federal funding or state funding without being in operation. I don't know how you could manipulate that system.
The uproar comes as an increasing number of families find childcare hard to find or painful to afford. Over the last 5 years, childcare costs have risen nearly 30%, taking the national average to more than $13,000 per year for one child. That's 10% of a married couple's median salary and 35% of a single parent's. Last year, in at least 45 states, the annual cost of childcare for 2 children exceeded annual mortgage payments. Nationally, at least $29 billion tax dollars are used to help families pay for daycare. The Trump administration says fraudulent behavior amounts to stealing from Americans who desperately need that assistance.
We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California.
But they're not stopping there. The administration has created a new interagency task force to investigate fraud, and they're appointing a new assistant attorney general who will have national jurisdiction to prosecute cases. Back in Virginia, Andrews says if there is fraud, he's happy law enforcement is working to find it.
At the end of the day, if somebody is defrauding the industry, it puts a stain on the industry. It puts a stain on those directors, those teachers that are all out there, those administrators that are doing the right thing every day.
A stain on the industry and outrage among some Americans about how their tax dollars are being used when an increasing number of families need assistance.
Yeah, you're doing such a great job.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Lynchburg, Virginia.
I think outrage doesn't even begin to describe it. When that story broke out of Minnesota, I was amazed people weren't being immediately arrested and charged with federal crimes for what was going on. But there seems to be both an odd sort of let's look away from it, let's not pay attention to it, let's not get at what's really happening here. But how often in American history have we seen a government program that then becomes some kind of benefit for a particular voting bloc? And what does that mean for us as a nation? Are we buying some kind of patronage that if we get elected to office, this is what you're going to get? We've come a long way from ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And we all need to recognize we, the voters, are part of that problem. As long as we're voting for government programs to be distributed to us, we're creating the environment for this kind of thing to happen. In ancient Greece, it was well known that when a democracy figured out you could vote yourself the treasury, well, that was the pathway to the end of the democracy. When we figured out, how can we get government programs to benefit us, and instead of us saying, what can we do for the country, what can the country do for us, we've turned it around. Well, that leads you to overwhelming spending, which is throughout what we're doing in our economy now. Is this deficit sustainable long term? Every single economist is saying it's not sustainable. We cannot keep spending it at this rate. I hope this fraud and this abuse gets us to wake up. We're spending ourselves into oblivion, and it's not benefiting what we thought it was benefiting. It's doing something else entirely. And both parties are to blame. This isn't a Democrat or Republican thing. Both parties are to blame. And at the end of the day, the voters are to blame. So let's change how we vote. Let's change how we think about government, because we can't afford the current government that we